means for a local authority. The agenda for today is really to give you a summary of the EUCF, the EU City Facility Fund, if that's what EUCF stands for, and then to give you some detail around the evaluation process. So there was already a first round of this last year, and there's now more detail on what the evaluators are looking for. I think that will be really interesting to maybe some of the local authorities that actually applied for the EU City Facility in the first round and were unsuccessful. So I'll go through that. And then I wanted to spend some time giving you examples of some success stories. So these are countries that actually did manage to get funding in the first round, and it'll give you an idea of the types of projects they're looking for, the scale of the projects that got through the first round. So just to give you again an idea of kind of what they're looking for. But to start off, I just wanted to go on to, I do have to say one thing very quickly, is that this presentation is being recorded. So just to make sure you're aware of that. And also I'm going to, well, depending on what this survey gives me in terms of answers, I'm going to actually, potentially there's the first webinar I did last year, which goes through the sort of a lot of the presentation slides, as like the same slides that we'll go through today. They're all available on a YouTube link, which will be sent out as part of this webinar. Okay, so a lot of you actually haven't sat. Oh no, okay, we'll just wait for this poll to come through. Basically, the question is, did you attend other presentations that I gave before on this scheme? And that will sort of give me an idea of how quickly to go through the material today. And just so you know then that there is also a recording of the webinar from the first call that you'll be sent a link to anyway. Basically, it's kind of looking like 50-50. We'll just wait for that to come through. I think the majority of people may not have actually been at one of these meetings before. So what I'll do is I'll just go through all of the slides fairly quickly to give you all a good idea of what the EU City Facility is all about. So thank you for filling that out. That's great. Okay, so essentially the EU City Facility budget for the second call. So in the northwest, and that's the area that Ireland are in, they are going to be funding 24 investment concepts. And the call was launched on the 29th of March, and the deadline is the 31st of May. So that isn't that long away, really. We're into the last week of April, next week. So it kind of gives you really 5 weeks maximum to get your application together, to get your projects sorted for this second call. Now, there will be another 2 calls after this, so don't worry if you think it's just not possible for this call. You can still start getting organized for the next call, which will be in autumn. So results of the first call, there were over 250 applications across 28 countries, and resulting in 14 countries and 30 beneficiaries getting essentially the grant towards the investment concept development. This is the spread of those kind of countries that were awarded the investment concept grant funding. So you can see there the United Kingdom got 3, Denmark 2, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, Croatia, Bulgaria, Malta, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Belgium and Netherlands. And unfortunately, Ireland didn't get any in the first call, but let's hope that we get really strong applications in the second call and we're represented then in the second call. So in total from Ireland, 4 applications got submitted. And these are the types of projects that were funded in the first call. So you can see the biggest percentage of funding or types of projects were building integrated renewables, so likely to be sort of PV panels, public buildings, energy efficiency, energy infrastructure here, at 16%, district heating and other sectors, residential buildings, projects that involved residential retrofit, 13%, sustainable mobility, 8%, and smart grids, 7%. So it just gives you an idea of what was awarded in the first call. So then just going on to sort of the basics and the fundamentals of what this city facility is. So the aims and the objectives of the scheme or of the programme is to provide technical, legal and financial expertise to deliver more than 200 investment concepts over a 3-year period, to build capacity of more than 400 local authority staff, to facilitate access to private and EU financing and advisory services, and then to reach out to more than 10,000 cities, encouraging replication. So the added values, the EU added values activities are to maximise the impact and financial leverage of individual projects. They want to promote aggregation opportunities by region and technology. This aggregation thing is very much a part of the future of energy efficiency. We hear it all the time from SCAI, even at a national level. Aggregation is the key to getting projects done at scale, economically, making an impact on climate change. So the EU is very much promoting that. Create links between cities and investor community, and then to facilitate EU-wide activities with cities and to sort of get networking going between different local authorities in different countries. So what is this? So essentially an investment concept is a development of a project that you might have a concept for, right, like a high level concept right now. And what this investment concept is to develop that to a point where it is essentially a very well documented, investment business decision or proposal, so that has the backing of all the professional services that are required to kind of give it a bit of weight. So, and really it would be something that you would go to the bank with. So that's the end result. That's what you want to get to. But to kind of start the application, you kind of need to have an idea of what your project might be and what are the components that need to get done to get it to that point where you could go to a financier with it and say, can we get some money for this kind of thing? So the structure of an investment concept is, first of all, there's a summary of the planned investment. So your total investment planned, the funding sources, the location, the municipality, the sector targeted, the overview and objectives of the investment, and estimated costs and revenue, economic viability, and expected impacts. And basically, you've got 5 parts to the template, which is part of the application process. So you kind of have to think ahead of what you need to fund with the potential grant you might get. So again, your structure is your description of your investment project, who are the promoter, who are the local stakeholders, what legal analysis needs to be carried out, who is that consultant, and how much do they cost, economic and financial analysis. So do you need some sort of a business consultant as well? And then the investment roadmap. So basically this sort of goes through all of those in more detail. I'll skim through these and all of these slides will be made available to you anyway, and also there's that YouTube video where I would have talked about these in detail. Like I said, this is the second call. There will be a third and fourth call. We're in the application phase now of, which is phase 2. And basically what this is first of all, you need to figure out, is your local authority eligible to even apply for this? And there's eligibility criteria, which we'll go through in a minute. But most of them are fairly tick box. Yes, we are. But there's 1 or 2 that you probably need to just take note of and make sure you have the documentation. and make sure you have the buy-in and the political commitment, which is one of them. So there's the eligibility check first and foremost, before you waste any more time, or sorry, before you waste any time developing and thinking you can apply, make sure you're eligible first. And then there's the full application. And really that's what needs to happen before the end of May. And then you move into the grant agreement phase, and we'll help you through that when you get to that point. And then after that, there's probably 2 months there of kind of negotiations and signing of contracts. And then stage 4 then is you're given 12 months to complete this investment concept, and to develop your idea into something really concrete and tangible, and that you could go to an investor at the end of the 12 months. And then step 5 is the implementation of the investment concept. You don't have to implement the project. That's something that's worth noting. But there is a bit of monitoring of on the implementation of the investment concept, and that's over a period of 24 months. But there's absolutely no onus that you have to do the implementation part. Like, they won't take back the grant. And just so you know, and it's possibly not really too much of a concern in a local authority, or maybe it is, you get a 70% down payment of the grant, and then you get 30% once you've delivered the investment concept at the end of stage 4. What is the overall application process? I think I've kind of spoken through that, and we'll get to the eligibility check here. So first of all, are you a local authority? And it's yes, for most people, I'd say, on the call. Is your local authority in the EU? It is. These two are kind of the tricky ones. Does your local authority have a politically approved SEEP, which is a Sustainable Energy Action Plan, CCAP, which is a Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan, or plan of similar ambition? So an example of a plan of similar ambition is that they accepted in round 1, and they'll more than likely accept in round 2, was an energy master plan that was done for one of the towns in the county. So that is a plan of similar ambition. So what they're looking for is they want to know what your baseline is in terms of gigawatt hours or energy units. They want to know what your target is, and they want to know what your, there is a target, and you have an action plan towards it. And they want to also know what your renewable energy target is for your area. So anyone that sort of has gone through the Covenant of Mayors would have developed a SEEP, which is the first one, Sustainable Energy Action Plan. And a lot of those were dated up until the 2020 targets. So they're still accepting those, even though it's now 2021, they will still accept those as part of, as being eligible. So that's the big one, that's the big hurdle. And I know every local authority has a climate adaptation strategy that may or may not be eligible. So if you have any query about whether you have a plan of similar ambition, send it on to me directly, and I'll get that reviewed by the team in Brussels, so that you know that you're eligible to apply for this. The next question then is, what they look for is proof of political commitment. So these Sustainable Energy Action Plans or Climate Action Plans, they're all signed off by your local county council, your mayor of your county or city. So you do have to prove that there is sign off on this plan as well. So that's just something to keep in mind too. And then everybody would probably tick yes to committing to monitoring period of 2 years. So it's really the two in between there that are kind of the ones that might cause, you might not have, or you might have to do a bit of work around in terms of getting them kind of to the point where you're eligible for the scheme. So again, you have your full application form, you have your supporting documents. That's sort of a repeat of what I just said. Your application form has the identification of your applicant. So stuff like your population size, that's important because that feeds into the evaluation scoring. The title of the investment concept, the allocation of grant amount. You need to know kind of what you're going to do with that €60,000. Who are you going to spend the money on? It's all money for labour. So it's, yeah, just try and kind of have a think about how you're going to spend €60,000. Activities that you're going to fund using that grant amount, governance and investment concept, development, engagement of stakeholders. Then your implementation. This is important as well because this all forms part of the evaluation criteria. The investment sector targeted, the intended measures, the expected size of investment. And it's not just the size of the investment, they also look at relative to the population size. So they're really trying to get you to be as ambitious as possible for the size of the local authority you are. So it kind of does favour a little bit rural local authorities, as long as you're ambitious in your local authority, in your rural local authority. The expected impacts, so that's all your energy savings. So all of this is inputted or is supplied with your application form in kind of Excel templates. And then your potential for replication and or upscaling. And again, all of these points, and we'll go into it now in a little while, just around the evaluation, like they're all things that they look at in lots of detail and will award you points on. So make sure you answer all of these questions, you know, concisely when you're doing your application. So what activities are funded? So there's €60,000 grant. The activities could be feasibility studies, engineering analysis, legal analysis, social studies, marketing studies, financial analysis. So your allocation of grant could be for money in-house, for staff in-house, but also for external experts and subcontractors. And then a grouping is led by one lead applicant, and it could be a group of local authorities. And they encourage that. They want you to work together. So a natural aggregation would be looking at the Cairo structure and seeing is there projects across various local authorities that are within one Cairo group. That's just a natural structure coming from kind of, you know, the development of the Cairos in the last couple of years. But there's also, obviously, you know, you can go with whatever, you know, as long as you form a grouping with another local authority, that's a good thing. Now, the one thing to note, I'd say as a caveat to that, is that you only get one €60,000. So just make sure that, you know where the money is going to go between the grouping that you create. So again, how are applications evaluated? I have a whole section on this, so I'll skip through this for now. Detail around evaluation. Okay, I'm going to come out of this presentation now for a minute, and I'm going to go into a PDF document. So on the EUCF website, there is a report called Methodology and Criteria for Scoring, Rating of Applications. And page 11 to 16 actually is really, really good to make sure you read up on. Really good transparency on what is required for a strong application. I'm going to unshare my screen here and I'm going to find this. Where is it? Here. So can you see my new screen now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. And sorry, if anybody wants to ask questions, just shout out a question along the way. Hopefully I haven't gone too fast with the fundamentals of the scheme, but I'll be here to answer questions anyway. So I'm just going to get into So basically you have your investment size and you have energy savings as really the kind of quantifiable kind of parts to your application. The rest of your application is very, what would you call it, quite, you know, it's the way you write the language and everything, but these two are fairly set in stone in terms of, you know, you're looking at the euro value of your project and the kilowatt hour value of your savings that you're going to generate. So you have to submit all of your supporting documentation. So your investment size, there's an Excel worksheet. There's about 3 tabs in the Excel worksheet. You have to fill up the entire Excel worksheet and upload that as a file in its own right, so that the whole Excel file is given to the evaluators, because they will do due diligence on the pricing that you say it's going to cost. So basically, if we just take a quick look at this investment, they essentially, what they do is, first of all, they do a sense check to make sure that it makes sense and that they do the due diligence. But then what they do is they actually compare you to the local context. So basically you could get, sorry, I'll scroll out a little bit of this. So the expected size of the investment, of the planned investment project, is highly ambitious in relation to the other submitted applications in the regional call. So you're stacked up in terms of A1, which is the investment size, and A2, which is the energy saving size. You're stacked up against everybody else within your region. So after they've done the sanity check. So the information provided in the support documents is highly comprehensible and plausible. And also, when taking into account the local context, such as the population number of the municipality local authority, the investment size is highly ambitious. Moreover, the pooling, bundling of smaller investments is proposed, if feasible to the context. So that's what they are looking for in terms of being highly ambitious and in terms of scoring the biggest, highest marks in that weighting. So if you go down to what they kind of score as 0 or really low, basically they're just kind of saying that no information is provided, or the amount provided is not realistic or is inconsistent with other responses. That would give you 0 marks. So that's just an indication. And look, I'll send you on the link to this document, but it's well worth reading if you're considering putting in an application. The next part then is energy savings. So again, your expected energy savings generated, just zoom in here a bit. So first of all, they will do the due diligence on the savings you put into the Excel sheet. And similarly, the Excel sheet has a number of tabs. They want the entire Excel sheet at application, not just your summary sheet at the front, because they want to check how you have done your calculations and your kind of physics and energy engineering calculations to get your savings. So the expected energy savings generated by the planned investment project are highly ambitious in relation to the other submitted applications in the regional call. The method and results in the calculation log are highly comprehensible and plausible, in line with corresponding benchmarks. Also, when taking into account the local context, such as the baseline, and that's why you need your CCAP with your baseline, or your SEEP, and your population number, the amount of energy savings generated is highly ambitious. And that's how you'd score a 5 there. The rest of the scoring is fairly, so if I just go back up here for a second, for A1 and A2, which is those 2 marks, they have a kind of a weighting of, they add the 2 together essentially, and that's how they compare all of the countries together. So then moving down here then to governance, basically what they are looking for in governance, the section that you have to write up on governance, again, it's more of the flowery part, but it's good to know what they're looking for. The application presents the internal organisation structure and decision-making processes for the development of the investment concept in an outstanding manner. Roles and responsibilities of all people involved are very clearly defined, including the presentation of names, positions, departments, identification of the persons in charge for the development of the investment concept, comprehensive explanation and illustration of relations, interactions between the people involved, illustration of organizational structure. The application clearly highlights the people with decision-making power and explains the process and format how decisions are taken. Moreover, it is clearly explained if internal capacities are sufficient and how the internal team ensures the successful development of the investment concept, or if external experts should be involved, and how they are able to provide a value add. So including possible roles, activities and areas for capacity building. So capacity building, remember, was one of the objectives of this scheme from the EUCF perspective. So again, it's knowing what they're looking for in terms of the language and putting in a strong application as a result. So technical capacity building, financial, etc. And then just to skim down to stakeholder engagement, again, I won't read out the whole thing, but it does give you really good tips there as to what they're looking for. The main stakeholders have been clearly identified, including a description of the stakeholder groups, their relation to the planned investment project, the corresponding needs, expectations, importance of success towards the planned investment, and the illustration through a stakeholder map. So I think there's a lot more information now than there was in the first call. And this is really kind of evidence of what they want. Like, we would have given feedback as kind of country experts to kind of maybe get a bit more information out or out of the evaluators from their perspective as to what they're looking for. And then finally, then the alignment with the EUCF objectives. Tie everything back to what they want is basically the key. And so the ultimate objective is to develop a pipeline of projects. But really specifically, this fund is all about, and it's listed all there, and I've kind of brought it into the presentation anyway, but you need to provide hands-on, locally rooted technical and financial expertise, building capacity of public authority staff, facilitating access, especially for small and medium municipalities, to private finance. So that's why I was saying the rural local authorities might score better. EU funding streams and similar facilities, and then to use the successful investment concept and knowledge of EUCF beneficiaries to reach out to cities to replicate, and again, replicate. Whenever we do EU project applications, you know, in the Energy Agency, and I'm sure it's the same in 3 counties, and Codema, who'd be familiar with it as well, they're all about replication and how this project can be actually, you know, the learnings of it can actually be maintained or sustained in the long term. So that's all I kind of wanted to talk to you about in terms of this section, which is the evaluation. So I'm going to come out of that now and go back into the presentation, but I will send out the link, and I'll make a note of that now. I'll send a link with that report out to all of the group after the workshop. And like I said, it's just much more information than we had in the first call as to what they're looking for and what would make a good call. Okay, so now on to sort of the final bit of the workshop for today. But like I said, you know, there's a lot to take in for people maybe that weren't familiar with the scheme at the start. I know I did fly through the kind of first part. For people that were already fairly familiar, the bit there in the middle might have been a bit too detailed for people that were kind of only kind of coming to this for the first time. So look, I'm going to be available for one-to-one sessions if people want them, if people want any support in terms of discussing project ideas, in terms of maybe me helping them through the application process, maybe doing a review and stuff before the final submission. So I can help with that process for anyone that wants it. But now we'll just go through 3 success stories. And these are 3 countries that did actually receive the EUCF in the first call. Excuse me now for 1 second. So one was from Belgium, one was from Croatia, and it was to do with public buildings and district heating, and the last one was in Spain. The one for Belgium, I think, is probably the most impressive, and it's also really, really, really ambitious. So don't get put off by the Belgian one in terms of scale, because the 2 that we'll talk about after are more kind of in line with really what some of the applications from Ireland were looking for last year in terms of value. So in terms of Brussels, basically you were looking at a lead partner. They had 18 municipalities of Brussels that they all tied in with. So it's, you know, really significant, 1.2 million inhabitants. And they developed the investment concept for public buildings, retrofit of public buildings in the 19 municipalities in total. So this is the governance structure that they brought into their application. So you can see there that they have a lead partner. They have a steering group or a steering committee. And if you look at the area on the left there, they have representation from the Minister of Energy, you know, an energy agency in Brussels. They also then have intermunicipal cooperative. They have a subcontractor, and they have a technical committee as well. So there's a lot of players in this network. They have targets here, which, you know, basically they took from the EUCF. So according to the EUCF, they were aiming to save 40% by 2030 to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. The final energy savings is minus 21% by 2030, and renewable energy is, you know, plus 1,170 gigawatt hours by 2030. So really, there was a clear link between the goals of the EUCF and the action that they put forward as an investment concept idea. So there's a link. So it wasn't just, oh, we do have a document there, but there's no reference to any of the projects that I'm listing in my application for EU city facility funding. So, you know, you're meant to have your plan with your actions, and really this is a way of mobilizing maybe one of the actions. So it was clear in the EUCF that there was a move towards energy neutrality for public buildings by 2040. So the activities that were planned were to look at the deep energy retrofit in public buildings, looking at heating, ventilation and air conditioning systems, looking at fabric insulation, looking at renewable energy and lighting. So these two programs are kind of, they seem to be sort of regional programs. The NRClick looks like it's kind of a monitoring and accounting, an energy accounting, like M&V sort of program that they have over there in Belgium. And the Solar Click is really just a solar PV kind of installation sort of program. So they linked in with them. So they obviously formed kind of partnerships with these programs. I don't know much, to be honest, about them, whether they're government programs or if, I don't think they're companies as such. So I think it is maybe government-led programs over there. Follow-up services then, maintenance for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, renewable energy and lighting systems, energy saving monitoring, and then personalized or shared services provided by one-stop shop for audit, engineering, fundraising, contracting, and controlling work results and monitoring. So the expected values from 2040, so the end of the investment program. So that's interesting there. So basically, they were actually getting this money to create a roadmap all the way up to 2040. So it wasn't like they were thinking of, you know, a small scale project that might happen and get completed within 3 to 6 months. They actually used this to develop their roadmap and all the way kind of over a number of years. So final energy savings is 197 gigawatt hours, 45.9 tons per year of CO2, and renewable energy 13 gigawatt hours per year of production. And the budget, 886 million euro. So massive, massive project. So if you can imagine that in, you know, your application and your investment potential. Now, you're still only going to get 60,000 euros. So, you know, you'd have to kind of wonder how much of that 886 million of a budget would actually, you know, be developed in terms of an investment concept. but that is the budget of the overall project value that they put into their application. So what do they do with the EUCF grant amount? The grant will be used by the intermunicipal municipal cooperative to hire an external expert as a project manager in charge of developing the investment concept. So really, they use €60,000 to pay for a project manager. And that project manager then had all of these things under his remit, and it all tied in with what the EUCF are looking for. So legal analysis, economic and financial analysis, projects portfolio management, and organizational concepts. They envisage financing will come from the European Investment Bank, from municipal local authorities, ESCOs, and private banks. Like, anybody could say that any of those could be potential investors. I just thought they were pretty smart with the way they actually used the money and the way they didn't limit themselves to just sort of one-off project. Municipalities, so 19 of them, the main beneficiaries of the investment programme, and regional authorities, Finance and Investment Brussels, and the Minister of Energy and Brussels Environment. So they were all part of the project. So what did they get in terms of the feedback from their evaluation? They were told that they had a strong impact of the investment concept on the energetic improvement of the public building stock. Expected investment size was very ambitious due to the grouping application. So that's like the 19 municipalities. Potential replication of the investment concept in Brussels and other European cities of similar size, and governance structure, a robust internal organisation structure for the development of the investment concept, and clearly defined roles and responsibilities of all actors involved. So there's one example of a successful applicant. So really you're talking about, you know, they are using that, like I said, just to fund one staff member to kind of develop the roadmap to 2040. So another one, which is a bit more of a smaller scale, but more maybe in line with what would have been submitted from Ireland. So this is in Croatia. And basically Croatia, they looked at just an urban area there with 32,000 citizens. And there's 3 different sections geographically within that area. So basically the background was that they know that there's a high potential for the use of biomass and solar energy. They have existing district heating grid in the urban area of the city, which is mostly natural gas. The city has a seat cap and a plan for the utilisation of solar energy in public buildings. So again, there's a clear link between what's written in the seat cap or your energy master plan or your SEEP to what you're going to put into the EUCF application. So the project idea was an assessment will cover the 3 settlements, a deep renovation of over 1,000 houses and 3 public buildings, 1.8 megawatts of rooftop PV installation, 4 megawatt of biomass heat plant, 5.45 megawatt of biomass heat plant, probably somewhere else, and then your heating grid. And the feedback they got from the evaluator was that the expected investment size and energy savings are ambitious in relation to other applications in the regional call and to the local context. So you've got your energy savings, your renewable energy, and your CO2. In their case, they projected an investment size of about €23 million. They talked about the governance structure. Again, just, you know, watch out that you, like, we all fall into the trap of, well, especially as engineers and stuff, of spending lots of time doing the calcs on the energy savings and the euros and all that, and then we kind of forget about the flowery kind of parts. But governance piece is really important. So the governance structure was well addressed, including the roles and responsibilities of the people involved, as well as their positions and departments. The decision-making process is clear and relation between each actors is well established. It is clearly explained that internal capacities will not be sufficient, and it is detailed what will be the added value of external experts involved. There's a clear description of the implementing department, definition of the chain of responsibilities, an outline of the potential partners in the implementation. And the applicants are already provided first estimation for additional impacts, as well as for replication and upscaling potential. So again, replication and upscaling, that's really, really important in terms of any EU funding. Defined upscaling potential within the local area, estimated potential investment of over 250 million euro, and existing expression of interest from several additional local and regional governments. So they provided a lot of supporting information to back up kind of a lot of maybe the flowery stuff as well. So, you know, some tips to take from those. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Rijeka is the capital city of another area of Croatia. Again, it is coastal. Okay, so this gives us an idea of where it is. So basically, they knew from their analysis and their CCAP or energy master plan that there was a high potential for use of solar energy and waste. They already had district heating. Again, it's mostly gas. The city has a CCAP. The district heating operator had applied for, I'm not sure what ITI stands for, a grant for the refurbishment of the existing network. And the project idea was to look at the utilization of ultra high temperature hydrolysis, conversion of waste into synthetic gas, utilization of gas in energy production and for mobility, production of electricity, lighting, mobility and heat, and production of hydrogen from excess electricity. So again, good feedback. In terms of the investment sort of scale, 78 million euro. The governance, again, well described. Stakeholders are all listed. Time schedules well appreciated. Definition of chain of responsibilities. Clear outline for the time frame of the individual steps and towards the completion of the investment concept, and outline of potential partners and stakeholders in the implementation. And moreover, the application is well aligned with the objectives and gives an idea of how the project could be potentially replicated and or upscaled. So same thing again, explicit link to the potential of replication in other EU medium cities and potential for the replication of the technical and planning processes. Okay, so final success story is in Spain, and this was to do with residential retrofit. So the objective is to scale up, I guess, the rate of refurbishment in residential buildings in Girona, and develop a municipal-led one-stop shop, facilitate the interaction between all the actors involved in the retrofit process. And they grouped 6 cities together. So 6 kind of probably, I imagine, smaller cities within that city. So the investment concept was going to pay for feasibility studies to determine the impact, the HR requirements, and the cost benefit of creating that one-stop shop, upscaling through Girona and beyond. And the impact there was 2.4 million, 30 gigawatt hours, over 106 million euro, and reducing greenhouse gases by 8.9 tons of CO2 per year. So the success factors were investment size and energy savings were ambitious, clearly defined governance, decision-making and coordination, additional impacts as employment defined, and grouping to support each other and being ambitious to reach higher goals. Oh, sorry, I have another one here. Another case study in Spain. Again, the creation of photovoltaic solar parks with the use of power purchase agreements, the detailed investment plan, and supporting the specialized technical team. So that was the idea behind the concept, the investment concept, was to come up with the plan and to actually, you know, fund the technical work that needed to be done. The impact would be that they'd produce 36.5 megawatt hours a year of renewable energy. It'd save 54 gigawatt hours a year of energy, and the investment was just over 33 million. And they'd reduce the greenhouse gases by 16 tons per year. So yeah, so basically that kind of gives you an idea of what other countries have done. And what sort of scale you might sort of be thinking of. It might also broaden your your thinking around kind of what they're looking for. Yeah, so it's kind of a bigger picture. Like you could, I'm just thinking of the Irish context, like this money could be used to generate your roadmap to the 2030 targets, for example, in terms of your local authority. So your energy, if you know, you'd be able to quantify that fairly okay, because you have your M&R data. So it could be, you know, the kind of development of those projects and what you're going to do, or it could be decarbonisation, or, you know, anything like that. But maybe think a little bit bigger than just sort of a single one-off project. Like, this is not a project that has to happen within a year. They want a pipeline of projects across Europe. So pipeline meaning you could have a pipeline in Kilkenny. You can, you know, as part of this investment concept, a pipeline of projects in wherever, Sligo or Galway. So yeah, so that's just some. I hope it's a little bit clearer now. I think there's a lot more information in this call, going into this call, than there was in the first call, but it certainly kind of gives everyone more of an equal playing field, I think. Basically, I don't know if there's any questions yet. I can't see any thing written in the chat box yet. But essentially, the next steps are that I'm available for questions now, of course, and if you have any, please let me know. And otherwise, this is my email address. I do have a city, another EUCF specific email, but it's probably better to get me on this one. That's my Tipperary Energy Agency email address. And look, just if you have any questions, if you want to have any questions around the eligibility of your projects, of your, you know, plans, your energy plans of similar ambition, if you want to have one-to-one sessions, if you want me to sense check anything in your application, if you want me to do a data check, just to make sure that you're uploading everything correctly, just yeah, please let me know, because this is what I'm here for. Yeah, so I don't know, Colin, if you can see any questions. I can't. I might come out of full screen and maybe I might see them then.
Yeah, there's one there, right, Sheena, just asking what about Climate Action Charter as an SEAP?
Yeah, so, well, the Climate Action Charter, as far as I know, is like, I think it's, sorry, I may be mistaking it, but I think it's like literally a kind of pretty much a single page document, just that saying that the local authority are committed to climate action. It wouldn't have, like, it's not, I'd have to see it, but as far as I know, it wouldn't have the detail that would be kind of similar to a CCAP or a SEAP. But you could send it on to me and I could check it. But I think they're just sort of single page documents that are really just sort of a commitment from senior management that you'll do something about, that you'll commit to the national targets. It doesn't necessarily say so. Say for Tipperary, what they would be looking for would be, if you look at Tipperary as a county, what they would be looking for is what are the gigawatt hours from Tipperary as a county, not just Tipperary County Council, Tipperary as a whole. And they'd be looking for the target for Tipperary as a whole then. But you might have one that's, you know, town-based, so like Nina doesn't, but if Nina had its own energy master plan, Nina would know what their baseline is, they'd know what their target is. So I don't think that information is written on the climate charters. Any other questions?
Yes, if anyone has any questions, you can just unmute as well. You don't actually have to write them into the chat now.
I think we're kind of finishing just on time anyway. I thought it would take probably an hour, so Or I guess if anyone has any suggestions as to what, like I know last year we kind of did a bit of a round table session with a smaller group, you know, kind of as a next step. If anybody thinks that that might be a good idea, we can certainly maybe look to see if you know, if anyone's interested, we can set up sort of an expressions of interest in that sort of forum. So we, you know, I think back at the time it was a pretty good actually session, because we were all it was quite very interactive, so people could talk about, you know, the different projects they had in mind. And what would actually be really good is if, you know, through that sort of forum, if you were able to think about collectively, and perhaps one person is the lead applicant and that person has the SEEP or the CCAP, but there might be merit in partnering up with other counties. Pete, there, do you have a question?
Not a question, just more so you were saying there about the collective efforts. I know that we're going to be making an application from our Carrow region in relation to a project looking at the energy efficiency of leisure centres. So we did make an application at the first call, but we were unsuccessful. But I think we've kind of ironed out the bumps in the application now. And in the interim as well, actually, we've just signed up to the Covenant of Mayors. So hopefully that's another kind of a positive when it's been looked at. But yeah, certainly we've had the benefit of having the local SEC, and it's the energy master plan that the Sligo SEC have developed that we're using you know, as that initial document to show that we have the commitment and the baseline work done. But it's only, that's for Sligo town, but the project itself is for leisure centres throughout the region. So I guess it's just to let people know, if you do have that document for a specific one location or one town in a region, that's sufficient, I think, for the application itself. But you know, it's many hands make light work. There's people from the Carrow, there's people from the local authorities, and there's people from the SEC who are all contributing to it. So it's a good opportunity to get heads together as well. So, I mean, that's just my observations on it. So, thanks very much, Nina.
Yeah, no, and Pete, thank you for that. Thank you for the contribution. And what I would say is, you know, when we send out this link with the report, with that evaluation, the kind of detail I went into in the middle, you know, really, really good idea to kind of just read exactly what they're looking for and just embellish your text and everything around the application, because I know you had a really strong application there last year, and I think it was just a technical thing that just kind of let you down at the end. But yeah, I really think that, you know, you have a good project there. I'd love to see that one would get through. So yeah, and if you need any support from me, if you want me to proofread anything, let me know. Cool. Does anyone else have any questions before we sign off? Okay, look, I think we'll sign off, and I think we'll we'll look maybe for some feedback after the webinar as well. And again, you might give ideas as to what might work best. And like I said, if anyone wants the one-to-one sessions, please reach out to me. That's my email there, and happy to help. And really keen that we get at least one success in from Ireland in this call. All right. Good stuff. Listen, thank you.